So you went and got yourself a law degree. Congratulations, and welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu, and I created this show to teach lawyers how to work in their gift and live their passion. Together with my guest, we provide the knowledge, insight, skills, inspiration, and encouragement you need to find your happy. Today I chat with Jackie. Jackie is a full-time lawyer, but also finds time to pursue her passion for blogging over at Jade, where she provides business and legal resources for other bloggers. Today we chat about her non-traditional path and how she makes time for her passion project. It was such a pleasure to chat with Jackie because, like me, she saw an and where most people see an or. It turns out you can be a full-time lawyer and make time for your passions. So let's get to the show. Welcome, everybody. Today I have somebody really great to introduce you to. Her name is Jackie Stoughton, and she is a blogger, and she actually helps people who are in the blogging field do it legally. So I'm really excited to hear her transition into that work and kind of introduce you guys to what she's been doing. Hey, Jackie, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Could you just get started by just letting us know a little bit about how you got to where you are right now?
Sure. So as far as my blog goes, I was working at a law firm and wanted sort of a creative outlet. So I started my blog about 4 years ago, and it was just a lifestyle blog, just kind of blogging about my life. Nothing really, I didn't really have a goal in mind. But then I sort of got burnt out from that. I didn't have a lot more to say, and I wanted to kind of use my legal background to help other bloggers. More people were starting to take their blog and their business more seriously. And I thought, I could really help them by bringing in my legal knowledge and help people out that way. So in the last year or so, I've transitioned and talked more on my blog about the legal side of things for other bloggers.
Are you still at the firm?
No. So that was a couple years ago. So I've had 2 different jobs since then. But yeah, I was at a law firm for about 3 years.
Interesting. And was it hard for you to make that transition out of a law firm? When did you know it was time to leave the firm?
I think for me, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do out of law school, but working at a law firm sort of made sense. It's kind of, you go to law school and it makes sense to work in a law firm, but I didn't know 100% if that's what I wanted to do. So it was really good experience. But I think after, a couple years, I was there for about 3 years. Towards the end of that, I was ready to sort of move out of the traditional practice, just the billable hours. I was doing litigation, so it was a little bit draining. And then I moved into, after that, I did oil and gas work for about 2 years. So I live in Western PA, and it's really big natural gas and energy. So I did that, and it was legal-ish, but I wasn't technically practicing. And now I work for a bank, and I do wealth management, planning. I'm a fiduciary officer, fiduciary advisor. So I've kind of been all over the place.
That's so interesting. Was it a natural progression, or did you have to make a conscious decision to move away from legal practice?
And maybe a little bit of both. I think, I was sort of burnt out from a traditional law firm, and I wanted something that was still using my law degree, but not in that billable hour sort of mindset, where you don't know what you're going to be doing each weekend, if you're going to be working or not, that sort of thing. So I think I was looking sort of in-house or working for a company or non-traditional, just to have more of like that life balance. So it kind of worked out because the path I went into, kind of led me, the next job led me to this one and that sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's really great that you took your time in that way, but that you made kind of a big jump each time. I think sometimes people go from one law firm to another law firm to another law firm before they go to an in-house job, to another in-house job, to another in-house job.
Right.
It takes a lot of tries to realize it's not what they want to do. It's not the place. It's the actual work.
Right. I think it was good because when I was transitioning, it was very, if I saw a job, I was like, well, this is a better law firm, or this is a law firm, but it pays more. But I said, but then I'll be job hopping in another year. So it was sort of, looking beyond that next, like a mini step up, trying to move more towards like what I really wanted to be doing. And for me, it was more of like that life balance and a little less of the stress of a law firm and doing litigation. So, for the most part, I work till 4 now, like I'm home, and it's Nice.
What?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you how you find time to do all this other stuff, but you work till 4.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So is that like bank hours?
Yeah. I'm like there about like 7:15, 7:30 to 4. And then actually doing like a lot of my blog stuff, I commute on public transportation now. So it's kind of nice because in the mornings I'll check my email and, write some emails. And on my lunch break or on the way home, if I have blog post ideas or need to catch up on social media, I can kind of do it, during the day. And then when I'm home, if I need to do things on my computer, I have that kind of time set aside. I try to make more of a game plan. So when I'm in front of my computer, I'm not just sitting there. I can, write a blog post or reply to emails and kind of move on.
The thing that I think a lot of lawyers struggle with is imposter syndrome and being ready to offer legal advice outside of the protection of a law firm or a company, a legal team. And so this is something I'm selfishly asking you because since I started podcasting, a lot of podcasters have been asking me about what they need to do as far as releases and contracts. And I'm like, I am not qualified to tell you that.
Right.
But I know I am more than the average person because I am a practicing attorney. How did you overcome that? And when did you feel ready to start offering advice?
I think that was like my biggest fear because it's not like a lot of other jobs where, if you do certain things, if you're, you're a yoga instructor, you can blog about yoga, or if if you cook, like those sorts of things where there's less of that liability. So I was nervous to provide legal information, but I think the biggest thing, and, speaking to a couple other lawyers who have kind of online websites or podcasts and that sort of thing, the big distinction is the legal information versus legal advice realm. So just trying to really draw that clear line, because I feel like as my blog grows, I get more and more people saying, well, my business does this and this. Well, what do you think I should do? And I don't want to jump into that realm. So I say, oh, well, I have a blog post about LLCs and the pros and cons. So, kind of the information. This is what an LLC is, and this is why it might be good for you, as opposed to looking at that person's facts. So
that totally makes sense because you're not giving them individual advice. So it's kind of the whole fiduciary standard isn't triggered.
Yeah. So definitely just taking kind of like providing and showcasing information, but not taking someone's facts and applying them to the law where it's turning into the legal advice. And it's hard because a lot of people, it's kind of an easy question they're asking and you want to just say, oh, you should do this, but you don't want to do that. So, I mean, you can definitely get into their realm where you're practicing kind of online and providing advice, but that obviously opens yourself up to liability and everything. So I just make sure in all my blog posts and everything that I write, it's very, this is legal information. It's not advice, consult with an attorney or a lawyer who's specialized in your area if you want some more information. So
was it hard for you to find lawyers or mentors to help you through this process? Were there people who were really open and able to give you the advice you needed?
For some ways, yes and no. I think it's hard because a lot of lawyers who are doing this type of thing, if they are coaches or giving advice or consulting, they're not cheap. So, and it's just like, when someone asks me a question, I don't want to give them legal advice or anything like that. So for a little bit, I was kind of checking out other people's blogs and other people's models of how they were kind of, looking at their disclaimers, where they were drawing the line. This is legal information. I did speak with one attorney and who does something kind of similar. And, I booked like a coaching call with her I just thought it was worth it to really get into the nitty gritty of how she structures her business. I think she does a little bit more of legal practice as well online. So I'm not really to that point yet, but maybe eventually. So we'll see.
Why do you think it is that people who've spent, 6 figures on a legal degree find it so hard to invest in something that they might be passionate about? Because that's something that I feel like a lot of people have struggled with a lot is I tell people, go find a coach. People tell me they're unhappy at the firm. They're unhappy and they just keep jumping from job to job. And I'm like, why don't you find a career coach? Why don't you find a mentor? And they're like, well, anyone who's good is expensive. And I'm like, you just paid how much money for a law degree and you won't pay a couple $100, maybe a couple $1,000, but it's certainly not 6 figures. What do you think is the kind of obstacle or mental block that people have against investing in themselves.
I mean, I definitely feel that way too. I am like so cheap about investing in my business, which I've done more of over the last year, but it's a balance, because where you're going to spend the money and where it's worth it. But I think the block definitely comes from, legal side is more, I don't know, like thought-based as opposed to like emotional. I feel like a lot of people who are like maybe more creative in their business, they really get more invested in like, oh, I'm going to really like do this and I need my logo and I need someone to coach me and help me and it's worth it. But for us, it seems like as lawyers, you don't see the immediate payoff. Maybe it's that whole like billable hour mentality of like, if I'm spending this hour, with someone else, is it worth it? So I think it's just very, like counting the minutes, counting the dollar signs. So it's hard though. It's definitely hard to invest, but for me, it's worth it if there's like a balance, if it's going to be worth it in the end. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that people should definitely be investing in themselves and their things they're passionate about, because that's, what life is for. We're not just here to bill our hours, but it is scary because I think part of it is also that with law school, a lot of us picked law school because it gave us what we thought of as very, a skill set that we understood how to use, and it set us on the path for a certain career. And so we liked that, the simplicity of that and the return on investment that we could kind of understand at an intuitive level.
Right.
But when you're doing this entrepreneurial kind of endeavor, it's not that clear. And as lawyers.
Right. Yeah, I think it's even, you go into a law firm and it's, okay, well, if I bill this many hours, I'm going to make this much. And if I bill this many hours, I'll get this bonus.
Yep.
If I work here for 7 years, I'll be a junior partner or something like that. It's very, you have expectations that are clearer.
Yep.
With a business, it's scary, and being an online entrepreneur, like knowing where it's going to go, it's definitely, you don't know, in 4 years, it's going to pay off and I'll be making this much money and I'll be a partner. So
yeah, I think we get spoiled because in our industry, everything is so clear. So we're not used to the ambiguity of the real world.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely scary. And, it took me some time as well to invest more in my business, but I'm definitely seeing more of the returns the more I kind of put into it. So
do you think you've always been entrepreneurial?
A little bit. I think when I was a kid, I remember, like trying to sell my mom like friendship bracelets and stuff like that. But I never really thought of myself. I kind of thought before law school, I was thinking business school, MBA, or going to law school. And I didn't see myself going to business school. I don't see myself as kind of a salesperson on that end of things. But I do think I really enjoy creating. And I think, going to law school and not doing all my little hobbies and that sort of thing, sewing and reading and all those just activities and hobbies that kind of fall by the wayside. I think once I was practicing, I wanted something creative. So, writing for my blog and just having that creative outlet was more the initial thought than turning it into a business. So I think just the creative side adds a lot.
So this is a question that I know a lot of people always want to ask is, and you don't have to go into numbers, but was student loans something that you were concerned about or having to worry about coming out of law school?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I graduated from undergrad, I had almost no debt. It wasn't too bad. I was pretty set. And then I worked for 3 years before law school. So I didn't really have a very big student loan payment. So I didn't really think about it. And I went to law school thinking it'll be the same thing. It'll be no sweat. And I think I took, probably an average amount of loans. I certainly didn't take, tons out. I've heard people who have taken a lot more out in loans, and I've heard people who've taken a lot less. So I feel like I fall sort of in the middle. So it's definitely a concern, and I'm always thinking oh, it'd be nice if I could pay this off early. So it's stressful. And I think I graduated in 2010. So it was kind of, I was in law school 2008, the financial crisis. All the jobs sort of disappeared. So I think there was that stress. The law firm model was kind of changing. People were hiring less summer associates, less first year associates. So it was different. I think it went from when I started law school, everyone's making, six figures coming out, to when I graduated, it was like, well, no one has jobs. So it was that balance of, it didn't maybe turn out to be the best financial investment in hindsight, but, I have the degree and I can never, I'll always have that and I'll always have that experience. So I think it worked out in that sense.
Yeah, no, I graduated 2011. So I totally feel you. And I think we also have some of the higher interest rates coming out of law school. So that was something that I I refinanced a couple years ago. So that helped with that burden. But I was definitely, I think, on the higher end. I don't know many people who had more student loans than me. Cause
it's tough. It's really tough because once you're in, it's sort of like you're all in,
Well, especially I think it's self-selecting group. I think that if you're the type of person to go to law school, you're the type of person who won't quit law school.
Right.
That's really how they get you.
Yeah, it's true. I know I had a couple people, or, I knew a couple people who quit, first year or second year. And I thought, with the job market, it was my second year. And I was like, oh no, like, is this what I want to do? But then I was already in, and it's like, well, you've already paid this much and it's so much work and so much, stress and emotional stress. It was like, well, I have to finish because I'm halfway through or a quarter of the way through. So
I think that sunk cost mentality carries on through people's careers because then they're like, well, I have these loans, so now I have to practice.
Right.
And then once they pay off the loans, they're like, well, I didn't just go to school so that I could pay off my loans. So I have to keep practicing so I can reap some of the benefits.
Right. It's definitely hard because, now I'm not, in a traditional, I'm not practicing, and I see my friends who are, and I sometimes think, oh, I should really, maybe I should practice again. And it's, I have my law degree, but I'm still like, I feel like I'm still using it in my job. It's legal-ish, legal base. We're reviewing, legal documents, estate documents, that sort of thing. So I'm still using it. And then I think with my blog, is a nice extension of me feeling like, oh, maybe I'm not using my law degree enough. So it kind of helps in that sense too. And I like that you go to law school saying you want to help people. I think everyone sort of says that, and then you get a job and you don't really do anything. I feel like it is nice with my blog and my website to be able to actually help people, give them like information. They're not reading it on like, the Secretary of State website. I'm putting in English where they can understand it hopefully a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I think that that's so interesting that so many people go to law school to help people, and then they get that firm job, and then they don't want to leave the law because they want to help people. But I'm like, do you feel like you're really helping a lot of people in what you're doing in your day-to-day work? And they're like, no.
Right.
Like, well, you only get to be 31, so you can use it being unhappy, but you can't complain when you're 50.
Yeah, it's hard. And I think a lot of the people who do get the big firm jobs, I never had that, but I feel like it would be hard to walk away. You have these high loans and you're making, a lot of the firms, people are making good money. It would be hard to walk away even if you're unhappy. But, where does that leave you at, Saturday night when you're working and your friend, your spouse is at dinner or something. So it's that balance. I think it's what people need to find.
Yeah, certainly. I would love to go back to how you found the job at the bank. Were they looking for somebody with legal experience?
So they were. So some of my coworkers don't have a law degree, but lately they're hiring more people with law degrees. So I think, it's a good non-traditional route for people with legal backgrounds because we're basically administering people's trust funds. So it's estate work, type work, kind of, I feel like a little bit more like I'm helping people because, people are calling, it's their finances, it's their, family trusts and estates. So you don't need, I think some jobs might require a legal background or a law degree, but where I work, they don't require it, but they highly, kind of skew towards hiring people with law degrees. So it's a good way to still kind of use my degree.
So when you went to the oil and gas job, you hadn't done oil and gas work before.
Correct.
And when you did this job, you'd never done trust work before.
Correct.
So I love that about you. And that's one of the things that intrigued me so much about your story is that you often see all these like statistics about how like women especially are so unwilling to apply for jobs if they don't comply with like 99% of the requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think you're just different, or how did you feel prepared to take on these roles that were so different from your experiences?
I feel like each job was enough of a preparation for the next one, if that makes sense. My first, job out of law school was litigation, so it was a lot of research and writing. The oil and gas job it was kind of estate work because it was figuring out who owned property basically. And it was a lot of, this person died in 1920 with 8 kids and they had 8 kids. So like who owns what shares? So it was a little bit of that. And so it kind of led into the job I have now, which is sort of, someone died and left their money to their kids and that sort of thing. So each one is like a little familiar or similar, but not quite. I don't know. I feel like, and I like the challenge, which is a little bit crazy, but I like that it's all a little bit different because I think my first job, I didn't really like doing litigation. And I was really afraid I was going to be pigeonholed. And it was hard to get out at first because that's what I had been doing for a while. But luckily, I think once you make that first move, someone is going to see that you're talented and you're qualified and that you can learn, then, you can kind of move and gain or grow your expertise. So
how did you make that first move?
It just sort of worked out. I mean, I was networking.
Was it networking? Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of that, talking to my local bar association, talking to friends. So both of the last 2 jobs I got I knew of them because of someone I knew who worked there. Said, they're hiring and, I've had other situations where that happens. I don't get the job, but I think, knowing someone who knows someone even definitely helps because, it's hard to just see those job postings and sometimes they work out, but a lot of times if you just know one person, they could tell you, you're a good fit for this, or this is what they're looking for, or this is why you should definitely apply or not apply for this job. So I think knowing people is always a good thing.
So I think that you basically have hit on like the trifecta of how to like plan your own career in like a conscious way. Is this stuff people taught you, or you just kind of stumbled across and is naturally how you navigate through life? Like, are you naturally a networker? Are you naturally somebody who thinks very creatively about your skill set? Or is this something that you actively learned to do?
I feel like I kind of fell into a lot of this and it was almost out of necessity, like I really didn't like my first job out of law school, but I needed a job. I needed to pay my bills and everything. And so I just forced myself to network because I'm very like, I want to go home after work. I don't want to go to happy hour. I don't want to, I just am like, I'm done. But, going to different CLEs or going to like lunchtime events and staying in my hometown and where I went to law school definitely helped. I had friends here. So kind of forcing myself to go to those things because I know that's a huge, huge way to find your next job is through people And then just being open and, being really persistent. I applied for so many jobs. So, I am happy with the things in hindsight, the way things panned out. But it was rough. So I think, just being persistent because I know the job market is still probably pretty slim in a lot of areas. So I think you just have to keep applying and just bugging like everyone If you have friends at workplaces, just remind them that you would love to work there or you'd love to interview there. If they have a happy hour, like you'd love to go. So I think it's just really being persistent and open and flexible because things change. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think that for a lot of people who've gone the law school route for so long, things kind of have been handed to you because there's like a way to do it. And if you just do what you're told, then you'll get to the next step. Mm-hmm. Whether that's, just go to on-campus interviews and you get the summer job and you go to the summer job, you get the law firm job, and then you stay at the law firm, you get promoted every year. You just kind of have to show up and it'll work.
Right. And that would be easy. And I would have taken that route if I had the choice. But, things happen the way they happen. And I was actually, laid off from my last job in the spring because it was in the energy field, oil and gas. And, it just kind of tanked over the last year. Gas prices have gone down. And luckily, I was only out of work for about a month.
That's fantastic.
which like was
I mean, I'm sure it felt terrible at the time.
Yeah. I mean, it was like a group layoff. It wasn't even it was just like the work dried up. So it wasn't shocking, but luckily, I was already putting feelers out and I had this interview lined up and I got the job. So definitely anyone who's listening who's struggling, it's all of us. It's tough. I think the job market is still tough, but just, keep pushing through and just I think contacts and networking are like your best friends.
I also just really briefly also want to talk about blogging because I think for a lot of lawyers, they don't know what they want to do other than be a lawyer because they've wanted to be a lawyer since they were like 10. And so I always say that writing and starting to write about things you enjoy is a great way to start to ignite that passion. And if you can write about something like you have for 4 years, you clearly have a passion for blogging and have been able to keep it up despite all the ups and downs of life. Do you still think that blogging is a worthwhile endeavor? Are blogs still, I know a lot of people are saying that blogs aren't current anymore and that people are moving towards other platforms and don't have attention span for blogs. What are you?
Right. Yeah, I think, it depends what you're going for. If you want a creative outlet and you want to blog about, your recipes or your family or vacation, obviously you can do that. And there's still a lot of people who do that. But I think, business, it's not as cut and dry. You can't just have a blog, put it up, and you're going to make a full-time income. It is a lot of social networking and being on Instagram and being on Snapchat. There's like so many things that come with it. You have to, a lot of people are starting podcasts and that sort of thing. So I think it sort of depends what you want to get out of it. If you want it to build your business, it's a lot of work. You kind of have to do more than just the blog. But definitely a creative outlet. It's always a good thing. Even if no one's reading it, just like putting yourself out there and being creative, I think it's a really good thing.
I agree. I think that if lawyers did a better job of nurturing all the aspects of their person and personalities, they would be happier in their situations. So many lawyers kind of do their work and then go home and veg out and complain about all the things they're not doing instead of trying to carve out time to do those things and pursue other passions and kind of build a well-rounded life. I know it can be hard. It's definitely hard. It's not easy for anybody. There's certainly people who work much longer hours than lawyers and get paid much less.
Right. True. Yeah. I think when I first started my blog too, it was good because I was, we got a new house and I wanted to I was reading a lot of like home decorating blogs and it sort of encouraged me to do stuff. So I would have something to post about. I was like, well, I really want to paint this room or I really want to hang up art. And I would put it off. And I was like, well, if I put it up this weekend, I can take pictures and post about it on my blog. Like it gave me more motivation to try new things and try new projects. And I picked up photography and different like hobbies just to keep myself creative because it sort of like fed into itself in a good way. It kept me engaged and interested because I didn't go home and sit on the couch. I was like, oh, I want to write a blog post or, I'm going to take pictures or something like that. So I think it kept me interested in something besides just, complaining about my job or something.
Totally. So I guess before we round out this conversation, I would just ask, what would be your best advice for somebody who's starting out in the legal career and not sure how to make decisions going forward in order to build their happiest life?
I mean, I know I talked about it, already, but I just think networking and building your social network is really key. If you are still in the town where you went to law school, definitely keep in touch with your law school friends because I know so many people who are doing totally different, non-traditional things. I have friends in law firms and legal departments, all of those sorts of things. And just going to events and talking to different people. I was that person who would cold email people, hey, I'm kind of interested in what you do. Will you meet me for coffee? And a lot of people are more than happy to talk to you. And I think that helped me realize more what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. So I think it's important to just kind of talk to as many people as you can and pick people's brains and see how they got where they got, because a lot of times you see people who are successful today and you don't know their path of how they got there. It wasn't overnight. So I think if you just talk to a lot of people, it'll be good thing.
I couldn't agree more. I definitely did something similar, and I was shocked by how often people said yes. They definitely said yes more than no.
Yeah, me too.
And I was surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I think people are naturally mean. People actually love to talk about themselves. So they're happy to do it. Especially if they're successful and happy in their life. They're happy to share that story with you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, where is the best place for people to find you if they want to get more information on what you're doing?
Okay. So my blog is jadeoak.com, which is JADEOAK.com. So over there, I talk about, different legal tips for bloggers. And then there's all my social networks are on there as well.
Fantastic. And we will put all of that in the show notes for people so they can access it directly under this podcast episode. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. It was really interesting to hear your story and to hear what you're doing. And I'm excited to follow you as you progress into this new area.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me for the Happy Lawyer Project podcast. Please head over to my website, www.thehappylawyerproject.com, for more information from today's show. While you're there, I'd love it if you'd leave me your thoughts on the show. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or follow me on Instagram. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to head over to iTunes to subscribe and review the show. As you know, each rating helps more listeners find the show and helps me get awesome guests on here for you guys. If there's anyone you'd like me to have on the show, or if you'd like to be on the show, head over to my website and let me know, or send me an email at akoma, OKEOMA, @thehappylawyerproject.com. A special thanks to everyone who's left a review, sent me an email, or reached out to me in any way. I appreciate you. Thank you again for spending this time with me, and if you would like to learn more about working in your gift and living your passion, head over to the website for a free gift. Until next time, bye!